You mean this album? This cool thing? Look at this. This thing came together pretty well, I'd say. Thank you so much to Humberto Torres and Alberto Cardona for doing the design, and for Gina Principe for doing all the amazing photography that you see here. You're looking so handsome. And here, I don't know if you know, but this is like a drum right here. It's half of a palo dominicano and half of a barril de bomba from Puerto Rico. So I wouldn't recommend playing on it, but it's pretty cool. So right off the bat, we start out the album with like a heavy punch. Somos Más Que Tú just hits you right there, you know, where we all like it from Puerto Rico. It's Puerto Rican Plena. I wrote this tune in honor of the great cultural leader Tito Matos, who was a really good friend. We lost him way too soon. In true Ricano energy, what we wanted to do with this is put the two instruments that make the most noise from each place into one track. So we have the guira from the Dominican Republic and the guicharo from Puerto Rico coexisting throughout the entire plana. And then you have this segment where you have sort of like a back and forth between Giuliani Polanco on the guira and Miguel Martinez on the guicharo. And then, you know, we wrap up the track with like a heavy hitting chorus that I wrote that goes like this. Si tú te crees bien bravo y quieres hacernos daño, escucha el tú pa tú, somos más que tú. And then from then on, El Hijo de Boriquén just takes over. You know, he has some amazing pregoneos that I recommend y'all listen to it, because very high energy track. Wow, Héroes. You know, I had to follow up the first track going straight to the Dominican Republic. You know, Héroes translates to heroes, and I consider the community of Salve in the Dominican Republic to be heroes. This track I actually dedicated to Enerolisa Núñez and her daughter Jenny Núñez, were kind enough to receive me in their home when I was doing one of my research trips. This is a very high energy style. I actually wrote a salve for the track, and the lyrics go, una salve pa todo mi viejo, buena que tiene que ser, una salve pa todos los ancestros, esta es la salve que de África llegó y aquí se quedó, de África llegó y aquí se quedó. You know, I called Tanicha Lopez to, you know, sing that chorus in a very powerful way. And overall, I think it encompasses that energy, that heroic energy, and very powerful energy that Salve brings to the table. Well, Esperanza pa mi pueblo kind of brings it to a more spiritual vibe for a second on the album. It's built on top of a Puerto Rican cuembe, and it features Aníbal Cruz on keys, Quique Serrano on the percussion, on the barril de bomba actually, and Cristian Nieves on the cuatro. And I just hope this track lands on the Make My Day Better, you know, playlist. It translates to hope for my people, and that's what I wanted to inspire in people. I wanted to inspire hope, and that's why I wrote those vocal lines for Tanicha Lopez and Genesis Davila. High energy, but also spiritual. So trying to balance that out. Hope everybody enjoys it. Well, I had to throw in a couple of covers in the album. So I went with Verde Luz for this one. This is basically a second anthem to Puerto Rico by the great Antonio Cabambale. So I wanted to make an original arrangement of this one that sort of had two sides, a slower side, melancholic side, and then a more intense side. So it features Tanicha Lopez on the vocals, Eduardo Sayas on the piano. It's Ramon Vasquez on the bass, and Francisco Alcalá on drums, and myself on sax. And that's what it is. It's Verde Luz. I don't need to say much about it. Take a listen to it. Oh, AFRO DOMI follows it up with what I could describe as like a rhythmic study based on the upbeats of the Dominican palo rhythm. Dominican palo goes like, It's kind of similar to Seis Corrido from Puerto Rican Bomba, but the first time I listened to this, I was blown away. The track that I heard was Papalek Ba by Marasa, which is an album by Magic Mejias, who is actually playing those atabales on this track. He's playing the Palo Mayor and the Valsie, which I feel so honored to have him on this track. And having it be like a rhythmic study and having this rhythmic complexity slash modulation, who better to call than the great Miguel Zenón to be part of this track. And I'm so honored to have somebody like Miguel here. And you know, he's playing alto, I'm playing tenor on this one. And it also features the great Josian Jacobo on piano and Abuelo on the tambora, Otoniel Nicolás on the drums. It's just an amazing track. Also features Hans Glawischnik on the bass. So, Palo Dominicano por ahí abajo. So Don't Take Kindly. That one takes us to a much more intense part of the album. This track is about my first encounters with racism in the States when I moved in 2016. And you could sort of hear that in the background, like these spiritual chants in the background, sort of echoing that fight. And I'm a huge fan of John Coltrane, so there's a lot of that raw energy in there where I feel like music is just my way of also putting that anger out in a very healthy way. And you have Eduardo Sayas like banging that left hand, sort of echoing that McCoy sound in such an amazing way. You have Francisco Alcalá just coloring the hell out of the album and this track in particular. And then you have Ricky Rodriguez, who did such an amazing job as a featured soloist on the track. I think he really communicated that energy, you know. Then you have the vocals by Tanisha Lopez and Genesis Davila, who sort of add that bluesy component to this entire track. And, you know, in short, this is what it means, you know, it's don't take kindly, because we don't take kindly to being mistreated, to being judged, to being punished 10 times more than any other white person for anything that happens in, I don't know, professional settings, office environments. So we don't take kindly. So Ser de Aquí brings us back to Puerto Rico, especially to the music of the mountains of Puerto Rico, la música jíbara. I'm still learning so much about this music, but to me it was very important to include it in the album, and it's based on the Puerto Rican Aguinaldo Lamento. So I wanted to feature the Puerto Rican cuatro in it, and I wanted to sort of take the role of the trovador within my saxophone solo. So I built the entire skeleton of the tune, and I called the amazing Fabiola Mendez to color it with these lyrics. You know, Ser de Aquí really is about this, it tells the story of this boy who leaves his homeland and is sort of wondering as he looks back, you know, will I ever be able to come back? Will my people ever be free? And the general message is being from here. That's what it translates to. The challenges that being from Puerto Rico and living in Puerto Rico and having to leave Puerto Rico brings, just because of the unfortunate circumstances that we face in Puerto Rico for many reasons, the main one being our colonial status. So by now in the album, you know that it's all about mixing these styles, and Seguimos Luchando is no different. We have Sica from Puerto Rico, and then we have Dominican Republic in there with Congo. And these two styles are coexisting, you know. And this track is a very sort of chant-like tune. It has this melody. Oh, so that is sort of like the basis of like a war chant, because it's about keeping the fight, about keep keep fighting no matter what the oppressing force is. And I wrote it actually thinking about all the atrocities that the US government has done to Puerto Rico. I had the pleasure of having the amazing tenor saxophonist David Sanchez, who's one of my mentors as well, do an amazing solo on the track and play with me. And then I also add a very special soundbite from a speech by the great Pedro Albizu Campos, as it leads into my solo towards the end. So sort of serving as the platform to arrive at the climax of the tune. So, you know, Congo and Sika, seguimos luchando. So now we're arriving sort of at the tail end of the album, and Dharma speaks about what your purpose in life is. And I wanted to bring those spiritual vibes and positive vibes up, and Dharma really brings us there because it's built on top of Juba, which is usually associated with like a war type of situation, but I wanted to make it more about hope and love. You know, Juba being, and this melody has actually been with me for a very long time. I think like 2014. Main melody. So it kind of like brings up that energy. I was thinking like, what could this Ricano music be if I were to write it for like a Disney film or something? So I had this big sound in my head, and hearing it back is like so impressive. It's honestly like a fan favorite, and I really hope that everybody enjoys it. Dharma. Well, I had to throw in some covers in there, like I said before. The second one that I selected was Amapola by the great Juan Luis Guerra. Now, I didn't have to do much to this tune. It's already such a beautiful song. Juan Luis Guerra is a genius. I hope he gets to listen to this version and that he enjoys it. What I basically did was I slowed it down a whole bunch. You know, Bambiche being like, but I slowed that down. I was like, sort of like creating a meditative send-off for the people finishing the album. You know, I put on my producer hat for this one. I, you know, played some very lush chords with it, some nice bass lines, and I had Juan Aldaondo lay down some sick guitars all over it, you know, and it's just a nice way to close the first rendition of Ricano, and I hope everybody enjoys it.